Okay, today we're going to continue on with solving equations, but today we're going to do two-step equations. In fact, I think there's even a couple three-step equations at the end. So we need to introduce you to a new rule. Last time, what were the things we talked about? We talked about the whole goal, which was to isolate the variable, get the letter all by itself, right? And then we had two rules. One rule was always do the opposite operation in order to cancel something out on one side. And then the other rule we used was what you do to one side, you do to the other. So here's the next rule. The next rule is look for adding, subtracting steps before multiplying and dividing. You're going to have multiple steps, and you always try to add, subtract before you multiply, divide. Now that might seem strange to you, because usually with BEDMAS, you do multiply, divide first before you add, subtract. Well, you're kind of undoing an equation in this case to solve it, so you have to do the opposite of BEDMAS. I guess it's SAMDEB. You won't hear many people talking about that, but that is the order that you will solve equations in. Okay, let's get right into it. So the first question here, we have 5m minus 2, and we want to get that m by itself. That's the whole goal, right? So which numbers are problems here? Well, the 5 is a problem, and also the negative 2. Those are both on the same side as the m, and we want to get the m all by itself. We want to get rid of these highlighted numbers. So our new rule is look for adding, subtracting steps first. Which one of those numbers would you get rid of by adding or subtracting? It'd be the takeaway 2, wouldn't it? Because the opposite operation of subtraction is addition. So you would actually add 2. And what you do to one side, you do to the other side. Okay, now we're not finished because what's left on this side is still 5m. This is gone, so that's great. And what's on the other side is 18 plus 2, 20. Okay, great. Look, now we're down to a one-step equation like we did last time. We want to get the m by itself. The 5 is a problem, so we want to get rid of it. This says 5 times m, so we do the opposite of multiplication, which is division. What we do to one side, we do to the other. And so the 5s are gone. You only have m left, and 20 divided by 5 is 4. We did it. As always, if you want to check your answer, just plug it in. 5 times m, which is 4. So 5 times 4 is 20. Take away 2 is 18. We got it. All right. So this one we want to get the n by itself. Our problems are the negative 3 and the plus 6. Try to add or subtract first. So what would you add or subtract? You either take the plus 6 and do the opposite of adding, which is minus 6. So on this side, the 6's cancel, and we're left with negative 3n. Equals, you got to go negative 12, take away 6. I like to add the opposite. So you have 12 negatives and 6 more negatives. So you've got quite a few negatives. You have negative 18. Now be careful. Remember, this is a very common mistake here. This is not take away 3. This is negative 3 times n. So you want to do the opposite operation, the opposite of timesing, the opposite of multiplying, which is division. What should you divide by? Lots of people say 3 here, but that's not right. If you put 3, you can't cancel out the negative 3 because they're not exactly the same. You need to put negative 3 here. What you do to one side, you do to the other. So these negative 3's cancel. You're left with n. Negative 18 divided by negative 3. 2 negatives make a positive, and 18 divided by 3 is 6. All good. All right, moving on. We got the letter on the other side. But that doesn't make any difference, does it? Our problem numbers in this case are the negative 2 and the plus 30. We got to get those out of there. So which number requires adding or subtracting? The plus 30. That's plus 30, so we're going to minus 30. What you do to one side, you do to the other. Okay, I'll start on the right-hand side. This cancels out the 30s. We still have negative 2m. I don't know why these equal signs won't write properly. And over here, 20 take away 30. If you can't do that in your head, then you could always add the opposite. Whoops. So it's 20 plus negative 30. Well, you have more negatives, and how many more do you have? 10 more, so it's negative 10. Okay, this is just like the last one. We've got to be very careful because this is negative 2 times m. Opposite of times is divide. In order to cancel out that negative 2, you have to divide by negative 2. What you do to one side, you should also do to the other side. So m is left on this side, and over here we have negative 10 divided by negative 2. 2 negatives make a positive when you divide, and you get 5. You can write it like this, that's totally fine, or if that bothers you in any way, you can certainly write it like that. Each of those is great. Alright, now, focus in here. Here is a tough one. We want to get this W all by itself. So what's the problem number here? The problem number is the 6. Okay, here's what a lot of people do. They see this takeaway and they do the opposite and they add 6. That's not going to work. Do you see why? If I put plus 6 here, I have 6 plus 6, which is 12. I didn't get rid of it. I just doubled it up. I don't want to do that. I want to get rid of the 6. I look in front of that 6 and I see it's a positive 6. So the way I'm going to get rid of it is I'm going to take away 6 and take away 6. Okay? I'll start on the left here. Negative 4 take away 6. Again, if you want, you could add the opposite. You have 4 negatives, you have 6 more negatives, you have 10 negatives. So negative 10 equals, on the other side, if you put this and say, yay, I'm done, you're wrong. Do you know why? Because this negative is still there. We haven't gotten rid of that negative. It's still negative. I know that's a takeaway, 6 takeaway W. But remember, we've got to get used to our takeaways turning into negatives like this. So we have negative 10 equals negative W. Now, at this point, you might just be able to figure it out, because if negative W equals negative 10, then positive W, which we want, probably equals positive 10, and that's fine. You don't have to show me that step if you don't want to. If that doesn't make sense to you, how I just went from there to there, think about which number is in front of this W, even though you don't see it. It says negative, but it's actually negative 1. If you can't see a number in front of a letter, it's actually a 1 in front. So, if this helps you to understand, what you could now do, since it's negative 1 times W, is do the opposite, divide, and divide both sides by negative 1. When you divide by negative 1 divided by negative 1 equals positive 1, or they just cancel out, so that's good. And negative divided by negative makes a positive 10 over here. We are finished. 10 is the answer. That's tricky. This one where you have that take away a variable like this often gets people confused, so be very careful. Alright, we want to get which letter by itself this time? The Z. We want Z all by itself. Whoops, so the problems are the 6, and the other number we want to get rid of is this take away 2 here. So what do we want to do first? We want to look for adding or subtracting steps, and we could add 2, couldn't we? Since this is take away 2, we will add 2. What we do to one side, we do to the other. So the 2's are gone. We still have Z over 6, which means the same as Z divided by 6. And on this side, 4 plus 2 is 6. Got to get rid of the 6 here. This is Z divided by 6. We do the opposite. We multiply by 6. I'm going to put it up here. What you do to one side, you do to the other. Why am I writing it up here? Because now it kind of makes more sense about how I can just ninja slice on this side, get rid of the 6's. So what's left? I have a Z here, and 6 times 6 is 36. Let's try that one. 36 divided by 6 is 6, and 6 minus 2 is 4. Got it. Next, we want the Y by itself. We want to get rid of this and this. Which one do we add or subtract? That would be the take away 5 or the negative 5. So we would add 5 to get rid of that. What we do to one side, we do to the other. Negative 8 plus 5. Do you have more negatives or positives? Negatives. How many more? 3. Okay, 5's are gone. You still have Y over 7. That's Y divided by 7, so we do the opposite. We multiply by 7. What we do to one side, we also do to the other. So our 7's cancel out here. Ninja slice. We're left with Y on this side. And 7 times negative 3. Well, there's only one negative, so it's going to be negative, and 7 times 3 is 21. Okay, a couple tougher ones here. We want to get this M by itself, so we have kind of 3 numbers to get rid of. You can think of this as a fraction or as 2 numbers. We'll talk about that in a second. And you also have the minus 2. So the first step isn't bad. We want to get look for a step where you add or subtract. Which step would that be? That'd be the take away 2. We make it plus 2 on both sides. So we still have 3 over 5 M. These are gone, the 2's, equals 1 plus 2 is 3. Okay, here's your choices at this point. You can either think of this as 3/5 times M, because that is what it is, right? 3/5 times M. So you'd want to do the opposite of multiplying. You'd want to divide by 3/5. and divide by 3/5. And so what you'd be looking at doing is 3 divided by 3/5. And then you have to remember how to divide. How do you divide? I'll just write it over here. If you're doing 3 divided by 3/5, first of all, you'd probably make this a fraction, 3/1. You'd keep that first fraction the same. You'd change it to multiplication, and you'd flip the second one. Remember? Reciprocal? So you get 5/3 there. Now you're multiplying. You're allowed to do ninja slicing if you want. You could cancel out the 3's, divide them both by 3, and you get 1 and 1. And then you just multiply across the top. 1 times 5 is 5. Multiply across the bottom. 1 times 1 is 1. 5/1 is the same as 5. So that's one way you can do it. That's totally okay if you like to do it that way. I would say most people don't actually do it that way. They get kind of, I don't know, they get all freaked out when they see fractions. So if you want, don't think of this as fractions. Think of this as 3 times m, and you're also dividing by 5. So treat each number differently. Let's deal with the 5 first. Since this is divided by 5, what do we have to do to get rid of it? We have to do the opposite of division, which is multiplication. We're going to multiply by 5 on this side and multiply by 5 on that side. When you do that, this number, the 5, is going to cancel with this number because of ninja slicing. So now what you're left with on the left-hand side is just 3m. And what you have on the other side is 3 times 5, which is 15. Hey, this is 3 times m. We got to do the opposite. We have to divide by 3. So what's left here is m. The 3's cancel out. And 15 divided by 3 is 5. Yeah, it takes an extra step, but you're kind of just doing the same thing, and you definitely get the same answer, 5. So it's up to you. We'll do one more like that. We want to get the n by itself, so we got to get rid of all this, and we also have to get rid of this. What's the first thing we should get rid of? The take away 6, because I can add 6 to both sides. So I still have negative 3/4n equals 0 plus 6 is 6. When you have a negative out front, consider it with the numerator. Never consider it with the denominator. You can, but I would say almost always you just consider it going with the numerator. So I'm going to do it the second way for this one. I want to get rid of the negative 3 and also get rid of the 4. I'm going to get rid of the 4 first. Since it's divided by 4, right? It's over 4 or divided by 4. I want to do the opposite. I want to multiply by 4. What I do to one side, I also do to the other. Now, since I have a 4 on the top and the 4 on the bottom, I can ninja slice. Those are gone. And I'm left with negative 3n equals 6 times 4 is 24. Last step, since this is negative 3 times n, I do the opposite of multiplication, which is division. What do I need to divide by so I can cancel out the whole negative 3? You need to divide by negative 3. What you do to one side, you also do to the other side. Negative 3's cancel, you just have n here. And 24 divided by negative 3, that's only one negative, so it's negative. 24 divided by 3 is 8, and we got it. Nice job. Okay, one quick word problem and we're done. 8 less than 4 times a number is negative 16. So we have this 8 less, we have 4 times a number, and we have this is negative 16. Let's start with the is negative 16. What would that mean, is negative 16? That would mean equals negative 16. Okay, let's go with the 4 times a number next. We don't know what the number is, so what should we call it? Any letter you want. I'll go with m. So I have 4m. Now, I want 8 less than that. 8 less than 4m. So it should be this, or should it be this? It has to be this. This means 8 less than that. You're starting with 4m, 4 times a number, and you're getting 8 less. You're taking 8 away from it. So this is the question right here. Alright, I know it's kind of spaced out, but I think we can still do it. We want to get the m all by itself. Let's look for an adding or subtracting step. That would be the minus 8. You got to add 8 to both sides. So we're left with 4m on this side. 8's cancel. Negative 16 plus 8. You have more negatives, so it's negative. How many more negatives do you have? 8. This is 4 times m, so do the opposite operation. Divide by 4. What you do to one side, you do to the other. 4's cancel here, so you just have m. It's perfect. We isolated the variable. Negative 8 divided by 4, negative 2. And you're done. Alright? There you go, everyone. We'll have one last step next day, and then that's as tough as they get this year. Alright, take care. Bye.